Hi everyone, and thanks for being with me. Immigration has always been an issue for the right wing. We've always had too much of it, according to them, and we've also been having people return or emigrate to Australia who didn't want, who they were undesirables for whatever reason. And even though I'm not going to talk necessarily about asylum seekers, and we do need to keep in mind that many people who do stay in Australia, once their visas have expired, usually find themselves locked up in some sort of detention centre. That's the majority of them, in fact. So, and some who become asylum seekers, particularly those students from China and other more undesirable countries. But the right wing and Paul Murray in this particular case, and a whole host of opinionated people on Sky News, disagree with the recent changes in immigration policy. They do not understand, it seems to me, that the system that was in place needed to have some tweaks and some adjustments to it. And I'm sure that had the Liberal Party been in power and implemented these changes that the Labor government are now planning, then there would have been a tremendous degree of support for what was happening in this regard. But because it happens to be the Labor Party and these right-wing crazies decide that whatever the Labor Party do, just like the Liberal Party itself, they're going to object to it. And here's Paul Murray objecting. So I'm going to play a little bit of Paul Murray's objections, and you let me know what you think in the comments below. And then I'll play just a snippet of Claire O'Neill's response in terms of what she has to say about the new immigration policy. So here's my buddy and my friend, my mate, Paul, talking about it.
Meantime, today, as you know, immigration, migration, number of people coming to the country has been an issue for quite some time. Why? Because the reality is that you know that most of the stuff that you pay for in the state government, well, it doesn't work. There's also too many people that are trying to get into it. We're talking about everything from the O system to finding a place for your kid or their sibling to be able to make it into a public school. We know that there aren't enough houses for the people who are on top of the 25 million people who live here already.
So listening to Paul talk makes us think, well, perhaps we shouldn't have an immigration policy at all. Perhaps we shouldn't have any students in this country, which I will remind you is the fourth largest amount of income that we are able to bring into Australia is via our education system, our universities and our TAFE courses that people come here to do. So he would like, I think, to abolish immigration entirely, to have a very isolationist approach to immigration.
And again, can I say, for those that are half listening, I don't have a problem with whence people come or what they believe or what they look like. That's not my issue. My issue is that the facilities that exist for the current 25 million people isn't up to standard of the 21st century.
And one of the reasons why it hasn't been is because the Liberal government have been asleep at the wheel. So if you're looking for any corrections in any of this system, you have to really be asking, well, what has the Liberal Party been doing for the last 9 years if it is so catastrophic now? It is true that we have inherited, the Labor Party have inherited all these problems in terms of housing and all these other issues that Paul Murray is referring to, have not just manifested themselves out of the blue because of the Labor Party being in power. That's not the reason. The reason why they're there is because the other dickheads have been asleep while at the wheel.
In places like regional Queensland, the rental lines are now so long, it's about 120 people to have a look at a place in Ipswich, or in Melbourne, if you're lucky enough to get the chance to rent a room in somebody else's house, that could cost you $400 a week. You introduce more people with fewer houses, guess what happens? The price goes up. And as we know, Australians have been very clear, and every poll tells us this, that the number of people being brought into the country not to improve the lifestyle of the country or to make you or I feel more comfortable, instead to pump up the bottom line of the budget, to make big business more happy. Well, surprise, surprise, another poll tells us here 62% of people say the current amount is just too high. But this government has got it wrong, exactly as we know for the past 18 months and every day since they came to power. They have got it wrong. Oh, it was all about being apparently post-COVID.
I think the interesting thing about these statistics that is raised, and I'm not going to dispute them in any way, is that Australians generally have a negative attitude towards immigration. And I think partly because there's a lack of understanding as to why immigration is important. The sad thing about that for me is that most people that have come to this country, most people that are in this country, their relatives and so forth, have been immigrants. The only people that aren't immigrants to this country are our Indigenous people. We're all immigrants. Our ancestors came from somewhere to here unless we're Indigenous people. So immigration is also important for a whole lot of economic reasons. And it seems to me that if we didn't have immigration, if we didn't have people coming to our country, we would not have the productivity that we require, primarily because we need to have trades, we need to have professional people. There's a lot of positions that are available that are not being filled simply because we do not have the people to do those jobs, particularly within the trade. So when he's talking about enough homes being built, one of the reasons why there aren't enough homes being built is simply because we don't have the people to do that work. Now we're trying to work in order to ensure that the people that come to Australia are people that can fulfill those skill gaps. So who knows what? So I understand, I guess one of the points I'm trying to make is that we need to perhaps change our attitude towards immigrants to this country, and we need to celebrate that people want to come here, and the reasons why they do come here is because they see this as a great place to live. We have a great environment, great climate, certainly, and we have a very different and vast geographical environment as well. So coming to Australia is a great thing, and we need to welcome people here no matter where they come from, because they are the people that contribute to this country. I've often thought, when I was young, it was Greeks and Italians that came to this country, and we used to give them a hard time. Us white British people would give them a hard time. We'd call them all sorts of terrible names, actually. But they were the people that did the work that most Australians at the time wouldn't do. They were the ones that built the houses, that fixed the roads, that collected the garbage, that did all those sorts of work. And they're the ones that worked really hard to become successful in this country. So I think we need to change our attitude with regard to immigration and start to support those people that do come here, because they are the foundation that has built this country into what it is today. And we need to do something about, at least, I think, acknowledging that.
Where they could say, we've got a surplus, the other guys don't, so therefore bring them in, bring them in, bring them in. But as we've talked about, there's a consequence when all of that happens. Now, amazingly, apparently one of the solutions to the government's problems that have been caused by, among others, clueless Claire O'Neill today was more Claire O'Neill. What do they say about the definition of insanity? Yep.
Well, I kind of think you're the definition of insanity, Paul, but that's another issue. I just wanted to go to a video of Claire talking about this so that we can get a little bit more balanced view.
When we arrived in government, we found a migration system in tatters. Don't take it from me, take it from Dr. Martin Parkinson, who wrote a comprehensive review for our government, which told us that this is a system that has been deliberately neglected over a decade. It was a system that wasn't working for workers, that wasn't working for business, and that was not oriented towards meeting our national interest. Our government has picked up this really ambitious reform project, and what we'll be launching to you today is a plan that will see us address those major challenges in the system. We are going to make sure that we bring numbers back under control, that we build a better planned system around essential things like housing, and perhaps most importantly of all, that we build a program that delivers for the national interest. Now, we're joined here today by two very special people, the Acting Secretary of the Australian Council of Trade Unions, Liam O'Brien.
Okay, won't go into that, but I think the important thing is that this is a significant change. There's an interesting site that I came upon called, what are they? Australian Immigration News. And they talk about this migration strategy. Paul talks about it as being something which will going to take place years down the track, that there's no immediacy around any of this. Well, the reality is that apparently, at least by June next year, a lot of the things that have been talked about by Claire will actually be taking place. So again, Murray doesn't know what he's talking about. The experts say something completely different. I'll put a link to the Australian Immigration Network below so that anybody who's interested in this subject can check out what they say. They're independent and they're experts in this particular area of immigration. So you can have a look at the link below. Also, I'd like to think that if you like any of the videos that I've got and you want to hear more about what I have to say, that you can subscribe to my channel. That would be really great. Catch you later, everybody. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.